Why do they do this to me? Why? Why do they ruin such good ideas? Why do they have to take everything and just beat it down to the point where you can't say very much anything in a positive manner? And it's happened with so many mini franchises. I call them the mini franchises because they only have like 4 or 5 parts, but they should have been things that ended at maybe a trilogy. And I only give that to certain films like Paranormal Activity. Paranormal Activity should have ended at part 2. That would have been perfect. That would have made sense to the whole thing. This is another one of those where the first VHS was fantastic. I still watch the first VHS, and it's so enjoyable every time I watch it after the fact. Then you have the second one, which, again, we're talking about a film that's an anthology series, so each one is going to be different and have different stories. The first one, here's something to really think about. The first VHS, which came out a little over 10 years ago, was so good, and the stories were so good that they pulled one of those stories out and made a completely different movie out of it. Now, granted, it's not the best movie in the world. I actually just did a entry about that during the Halloween special I did. The VHS story is called Amateur Night, which they pulled and made the movie from 2016, the movie Siren. Yeah, it doesn't translate well, but still, they tried. And that just goes to show you that that's the only one they've ever done that with. They haven't tried to pull another movie from any of these. And now I'm only giving credit to 1 and 2, because 1 and 2 are literally the best out of the 5 of them that they have so far. I just can't stand the fact that they were doing so good. And VHS 2, I think it was something along the lines of they changed like production companies, or the licensing to the idea was sold off, maybe. I mean, I honestly don't know 100% how it could get that bad in such a short period of time. So the first VHS comes out, and it's tremendous for me. The second one comes out, it's just as good. It literally just like blows my mind of how good those two films are back to back. And I'm not saying they're like mind-blowing because they're going to like break records or anything. They're just really enjoyable anthology movies with a very basic concept and idea. Then the third one comes out, and that's a dumpster fire. I hated VHS Viral. I thought VHS Viral was literally the wrong direction to go in. I get what they were trying to go for, but just because it's what you think might work doesn't mean it's going to, and maybe you should leave it at this, or if you planned on doing another one, do a little bit better, or at least try to do a little bit better, at least have some idea of what didn't work, and then make it work. But no, what happened? Oh, this is what happened, because the first 3 are Magnet Productions, and I believe these 2, the 90s ones, VHS 94 and VHS 99, I believe they're both Shudder originals. So Shudder now takes the franchise, and not only do they fucking shit the bed with VHS 94, they do it again with VHS 99. I am just so angry about it, because they just keep beating it down and just making me so mad, because this is something that I really, really love. I love anthology movies. I love found footage style movies. I love mockumentaries. And VHS was just this acclamation of all of that really like tugged at my little heartstrings, my little horror man heartstrings. I don't believe I've ever done a 94 entry. Maybe I should, but we're not going to go into the stories in 94 so far. We're going to go into the dumpster fire that is the most recent one, which came out, I want to say, or sometime around Halloween of last year. And I don't believe I did an entry on that one. I might have done an entry on 94. I just can't remember off the top of my head. But if I didn't, I might do one for that, or I might just leave it at this. I don't think VHS 94 deserves anything, but I'm doing 99 because it's the most recent, and it's like the pinnacle of you don't care about the people who have dedicated time to really wanting to enjoy these movies. So, VHS 99. Maybe they're going to play a little bit off of, the Y2K stuff and such. It's kind of there, but it's not really a major plot point. It's just kind of spoken about. So if you don't know anything about the VHS series, what they do is there's an overarching story revolving around the tapes. So essentially what happens is something is going on that's getting the tapes to sort of be played, and then the tapes are playing and somebody is kind of watching, but there's something else happening in the background. That's how 1 was. That's how 2 was. Viral, I think, was sort of like that, but it really didn't nail it as good as the first 2 did. I'm pretty sure 94 threw that whole thing out the window, and this one tries to do it, but then here's this thing that happens. So it starts off, you're watching this dude play with army men, and it's this recording of him recording himself play with army men. So you're like, okay, that's the main backstory line. So we're not really 100% paying attention to that, because it's going to come to fruition as the last story in the anthology at the very end. So the first story is this story of these 4 friends, these teenagers who have this band, but it's sort of this maybe view of what it was like to be a teenager in the late 90s. You're talking about everybody was recording themselves, trying to make it big, trying to do stupid shit and pranks, and really go, before viral was a thing, to really become famous from doing funny videos or vlogging your life, almost like Real World and Road Rules and all that stuff. So you have these 4 friends, that's what they're doing. So that's how you get the premise of they always have the camera. So they're in this band, and there's this abandoned warehouse that was burned down, and there was a tragic accident where another band was killed in the accident. And so every year they say that you should go down into the building and play on the same stage as them. It's fucking stupid. So they go, they play. What happens? Them playing wakes up the spirits, and they wind up getting murdered by the members of the previous band. Okay, maybe somewhat decent, but it's totally ruined because the monsters are bad, the acting is horrible, and it's just not a full fruition to end that story. Cut off of that, go to the next one, which is actually the better of them, maybe because I can actually see this as being its own separate movie, but it kind of falls short on the idea of its accomplishments aren't really weighted in much. So it's about this sorority house, and they're hazing this girl who really wants to be in there, and how they haze her is they make up this story of this sorority sister who was buried alive for an hour, and that's how you get initiated, and if you don't last, you can't be in the fraternity, not fraternity, sorority. And so they basically are saying that this is what you have to do. So they put the girl in the box, and then all of a sudden the cops show up. So the cops show up and they scatter, and they don't dig the girl back up. So now because they don't dig the girl back up, she's stuck there for more than an hour. And then what happens is this huge storm hits, and it starts burying her more in the ground because it's making the dirt really wet, and it's soaking in and filling in the grave. And then they show up the next day, and oh no, the girl's gone. Whatever happened to her? And they're like, we can't talk about anybody about this. And so they leave, and then it's a split cut. It goes to every single one of them has a camera now, and they're being haunted by the death of the girl that they were hazing. Again, not the best execution, but probably the better of the 4 stories that are in this. It's either that one or the one right before the very end, which, I'll get into that after this one, because the next one is something that involves this play on a game show that was for kids on Nicktoons. What the fuck is the name of the show? It's a play on, I had the huge face. I can't believe I forgot that. It's going to come to me later. It's going to kill me that I didn't bring it up now. But that's what it's based on. It's based on that show from Nickelodeon. So they have kids. They're trying to, complete the tasks so they can win prizes. And it's a little bit more extreme than that show was. And I think that's what they're trying to portray, that this is an extreme challenge. And so the girl gets injured and she doesn't win. And then the family kidnaps the host, the show's host, and just torture him in the style of like what it was like for their daughter to go through the game. It's so stupid. And even worse than that, it comes to a conclusion where they figure out that they can finally beat the dungeon, get the prize. The prize actually leads to something that's really more otherworldly, but it's never explained. And then all of a sudden, everybody dies. Just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. Now, the second to last one, and this is the one that I was talking about, that is actually a good story to do like separately, maybe, simply because like I feel like it kind of has this, like a Disturbia, Rear Window kind of vibe to it, but like, teenagers in the 90s, and maybe just adding a little bit more time for like a setting up the lore. So what it really is this one, and again, the second to last one, this story is basically what the culmination of all of the background footage that is being premiered between stories. So that's how VHS works. They tell a bunch of stories, and then they separate each story by a clip of the overarching story. So if you were to think that this would be the ending, it's not, but it's the ending of the overarching story, which doesn't make any sense. I don't know if whoever the editor was edited it wrong and put the culmination story as the second to last one, because it just doesn't fit with what how the stories are meant to be told. So the story is a bunch of teenagers, they're recording themselves. A really hot neighbor moves in and makes friends with one of the dude's brothers. And the dude's brother goes over there to help set up her computer. And what he does is he leaves like a hidden program on the computer to allow them to see her webcam. And so they come back, they start gawking over now, they can see her webcam, and all of a sudden she starts turning into like this creature. Now, it's a little hidden at first until she like breaks out of her house and then comes crashing into their house across the street, where you learn it's Medusa, which is pretty cool because she starts turning them all to stone, and it's this whole thing where they're trying to get away and they don't understand what's happening, and so she murders them all and turns a bunch of them into stone, and it's pretty cool. And it would be good if like it could be like given a little bit more substance, but of course these are only meant to be like 15-20 minute stories at best. So within 15 minutes they have to get this across, and they do a pretty good job at this story, which I feel like, again, between this one and the one about the sorority hazing, I think those have a little bit more substance to them, but because they're meant to be so short, they don't get to really put a lot of meat on their bones to tell the story correctly. But again, this is where they go off the rails and fuck it up. There is one more story, and the one more story, though it might be good and slightly entertaining, it's overshadowed by some poor way that they decided to manage it, and it's not even the overarching story, which doesn't fit in the VHS franchise style. So what this is a couple of guys are documenting a sort of seance that goes wrong, and then they both wind up in hell. And they're trying to break out of hell, and then they meet a witch who's in hell, and she tries to help them. And again, probably a pretty decent idea if given a little bit more time to stretch his wings a little bit, but overshadowed by how they try to establish relationships with really poor dialogue. So the relationship between the two dudes it's focused on, it's like, oh, they're friends, but they have a lot of disagreements, and they're business partners, and they're trying to make it work, and they're also trying to get out of hell, but now they're also combating each other. Like, you don't get to learn any of that. You're just meant to assume it, and the few little shots they give them just kind of feel forced. So it doesn't give it enough. And then the stuff it does give it that it thinks is enough is just done really, really bad. So out of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stories? 5 stories, I said? Yeah. Out of the 5 stories, 2 of them are sort of decent as they are to become pull-out films if they ever wanted to do films based on just those. I don't think that'll ever happen because just like the other VHS, and I'm pretty sure just like any other one they might do, this one isn't really rated all that great. I think it's rated a little bit better than 94, but it's still not good. It's still not what people want from VHS. And if they were to pull the stories out and make them separate movies, give them some time to flesh it out, I think that'd be worth it. I think there's some credit to at least 3 of them, but only 2 of them really are worth watching this movie for as it sits now, sort of. You know, I really get mad when they do this, and I got mad at the Paranormal Activity series, and I get mad at a lot of these because they're forcing sequels, and it's not necessary. Leave stories as they are. Sometimes you only need 1, or you only need 3, or you only need 2. You don't need 5. You don't need 6. Fast and Furious could have stopped a long fucking time ago, but they keep making them. And they're going to keep doing this with every franchise that they think they can soak the money out of because that's all that matters, and good storytelling doesn't, and it pisses me off.